Hello everyone, I'm Colin Canet, and today I'm back with another episode of Tips and Tricks using CA glue. And if you've been following my channel for a while, you'll know that this is the third or fourth year that the Starbond people have been supporting my channel, and I'm really happy to be working with them. It's the only CA glue that I use anymore, and that's because it has such a good variety, not only of glues, but also of accelerators. And I'm going to touch on some of those as we go along today, but let's get started with some tips and tricks first of all. Well, I do have some late breaking news today. I've just been informed that Starbond is giving a 25% discount on all their products until the 20th of October, 2021. And all you have to do is use the code word woodworkweb25. I often use these disposable brushes for spreading glue, and I often will cut the ends off, like that sort of thing. But what I find often, and you can see there's a few hairs coming out of this one, these are just inexpensive brushes. Sometimes the hairs come out of them. What I do to fix that is to put just a line of glue, a very thin line of glue, right at the very edge. I don't even know if you can see that, right at the very edge. And just let it soak in, turn it upside down so that it runs down, otherwise it can get into the bristles. And the same thing on here, I just let it run down inside, and that way it locks. And I don't use an accelerator on it, and I just leave it like that and just let it sit for an hour or so until it's dry, until you can't pull any bristles out, and then you've got bristles that are locked to the paintbrush. Now, sometimes when I'm making wooden boxes, I make a lot of wooden boxes. Depending on what I want to do for the bottom, sometimes I have it elevated like this one, and I need to get in and mark. Sometimes I need to get in and mark the insides of these, and of course you can't get in with a pencil to all of these sides, so I make one of these little pencils. I've got a couple of them around, and they're all they're used for is for getting into areas. You can see that you can get this little pencil into an area right down in there where you normally wouldn't be able to get in. So there's the two pieces of my pencil. So all I need to do now is put a little bit, in this case I'm going to use some medium glue, so put a little dab on there. Now I'll put the top on, and I want to have it at that angle. There we go. I'm just going to hit that with a little bit of accelerator. Move that around a little bit. There, and that's locked on there. Now, one of the reasons that I really like Starbond is because they've been supporting the woodworking community by making a black CA glue and a couple of versions of brown, and I have one of each of these here. And the reason that this is so important is because wood, having imperfections as it often does, you can see that this one has sort of a black line in there, and we can fill that with, there's a couple of different things we can do with that, but it's already black, so I would fill that with black. And you can see that there's some little tiny flecks on there as well, but also we get knots, and sometimes these knots can come loose. This one probably wouldn't because it has a hole in the middle, but very often if they're cracked around the sides, they'll come loose. So we can use CA glue to get in there. But look, when you buy CA glue, they come with a couple of nozzles, but they also come with these little, see these little tips down here, if I can show you them right there. And you don't even really need to accelerate it. You can just get right in there. You might need some magnifier to see exactly what you're doing, but rather than trying to take the lid off and get in there with that, you can get very fine work in there. Now, what I can tell from this one is I can see that it's probably already, sometimes they will soak all the way through, but I can see that it's dribbling down, and sometimes you'll have to keep refilling it. And the best thing to do with some of these is to just do a little bit of accelerator on it, and that freezes it, that locks it, and that accelerator will just dissipate, and you can now fill on top of that accelerator. So you might need to do that a few times, and you can get a very nice flat top on there, and then you may want to use some very fine sandpaper with like a block of wood or something, so you keep it nice and flat, and that will give you a really good repair job. And you won't even notice that once you get a finish on there, depending on what the finish is that you're using, it'll just blend in there perfectly. So, and when you're working with CA glue, I always recommend to use gloves. And the only gloves that you can use with CA glue is something called polythyrene, and they're these sort of ugly looking gloves. Most of us have these nitrite gloves. You cannot use these because CA glue sticks to them, but I don't even follow my own good advice sometimes, and I just use my fingers. And there's been a couple of times where I've been holding something, and there was a little bit of CA glue, and my finger stuck to the project. And look, the quick way to fix that is to get yourself a little bottle of debonder. Something like this will probably last you a lifetime. It has a little applicator so that you can get into really tight spots and get something released quickly, so you can get on with your project and not worry about having your fingers stuck together or your fingers stuck to wood or another project. So, bottle of debonder, you'll be happy you had it on hand. Now, one of the new products that I wanted to introduce you to is this new medium, and if you look underneath my finger there, it says flexible. This is going to be my new go-to CA glue. I've been using this one and it's worked marvelous for years, but I'm really liking this flexible. And the reason I'm going to the flexible is because it does everything that this does, but it's not quite as brittle. And for example, I'm going to apply some sandpaper to a dowel, which I do from time to time. And when I do that, because I'm going to be using it in a sort of a mechanical manner, the glue isn't going to break down quite as easy. So I did a little bit of a mess on there, but it doesn't matter. So what I'm going to do, I'm just putting some accelerator on the back of my sandpaper there, and I'm locking that down, and now I'm going to be able to spin that all the way around. But look, I'm going to put glue now on the sandpaper, not on the wood, so back on the sandpaper like that, and then I'm going to bring that over and I'm going to accelerate underneath that, and that will lock that sandpaper on there, and it's going to be much easier to take off. But look at that, it's all the way around. So now whenever I'm sanding holes or the inside of something, I can get right in there, but I can release that, pull that off and put another piece on there, because part of it is already on the sandpaper. And because I'm using this flex, this sandpaper and the glue is going to be a little bit more forgiving because there's a tiny bit of flex in it, so that when I'm using something like this, and often in the workshop we're using this for mechanical things that we're putting together, and if we can reduce that brittleness a little bit, so that's why this is going to be my new medium CA glue from here on. Here's a new product I discovered on the Starbond site. This is odorless thin CA glue. This is perfect for woodturners who are using CA glue as a glossy, hard finish on their pens and bowls. Just a reminder, you can get spare parts. If the spritzer on your bottle goes like mine did, you can get that replaced. But also you can get empty bottles. They come in a bag of 5, and maybe you want to keep your main bottle in the fridge where it keeps longer, and just take a little bit out of it each time and put it in another bottle and keep that in the workshop. So lots of things to make your life a little bit easier in the workshop. Here's a little trick I use a lot whenever I'm working with rope, especially this thin paracord. Tying knots, maybe you want to anchor a rope in some place and you don't want it to ever come loose. Maybe your hole is a little bit big and you want to make sure that it isn't going to pull through. Use a little bit of CA glue all the way around the knot. Just lightly touch the areas and that will lock that knot forever. It's even waterproof, and with you use a little bit of accelerator, you can use it right away. Maybe you're making handles, for example. Maybe you need to tie loops or something that you need to make sure they stay in that same place and that they're locked. Lots of things that you can do with CA glue and using a rope. Well, that concludes my video for today. You know, I use CA glue a lot in my workshop, and if you're like me and you work alone in your workshop, this can serve as another set of hands for you in many instances where you need to hold something temporarily in one position or another, and CA glue is perfect for doing that sort of thing. I'm Colin Canet for Woodwork Web. Thanks for watching.